back to the garage.
To the garage. Oh, yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Joey and Jeremy podcast in full effect today, man. Yeah,
that's right.
Absolutely. And we're going to kick off. Jeremy's going to take the wheel.
Take the wheel.
We're going to go through his journey, health, fasting. We're going to talk about physical effects of the fasting as well as the spiritual. And I'm going to be here nodding my head and saying, that's right. And you can go ahead and take it away, man.
Yeah, pressure's on. So, first of all, Joey and I both have incredible stories. We got into them a little bit in, I think, the first episode. We thought it might make sense just to come back and talk more about my journey, more specifically about what I did, why I did it. So really, we thought that might be worth just a separate conversation. So that's why we're here today. So yeah, I've had a pretty long journey. We said before we met back in college, that's been 2 decades ago. So you've seen a lot of versions of me.
That's right.
I was pretty healthy coming up. I played basketball. I'm 6'3". Today I'm like 230, 225, 230, something like that. So going to college, I was about 220. Pretty healthy, played basketball a lot. We talk about basketball quite a bit. So I was in pretty good shape. Played basketball in high school, played intramurals. We got a couple championships.
Oh, yeah, man. I got the footage.
We had some pretty good squads back at USC. So I was always interested in health. I always cared about my health. You know, time ticks away and habits. And we got into some of this before, but what I noticed is that I was always interested in health. I always cared about my weight. I was always exercising. I always counted different things, whether it was calories or carbs and different things. But just over time, I just found myself getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And if I look back at just the I charted it out. So I put a graph together.
Yeah.
And what you'll notice is that my weight would go up and it would go down. It would go up and go down. It would go up and go down. But slowly but surely, it was just creeping up on me. And what I realized is that I would kind of get off track, and then something would inspire me. New Year's, trip coming up, anniversary, whatever it was. And so I just would work out, do what I needed to do to kind of get a little bit smaller, and then the bad habits would come back.
Yeah, you hit that frantic pace just to hit the mark.
Yeah.
And then once you hit the mark, there's no more motivation.
That's right. So it was motivation. I didn't have a lot. It was just limited motivation. Working a lot, bad habits. I developed a craft beer hobby that I enjoyed. And so, it was nothing for me to go to a beer festival and had a good time, had a really good time. Yeah. I found myself, I'm 6'3", as I mentioned, I was 300 pounds. 2019, this was about April of 2019. We had just come out of All-Star Weekend up here in Charlotte, and I went to All-Star Weekend with a buddy of mine, frat brother of mine, of ours, not just mine. And it was one of the moments, and I was like, you know what? I'm tired of being the biggest person everywhere I go. And so I just got to a point where I was just kind of fed up with some things. And I realized that 300 pounds is not healthy. And at this pace, who knows where I will be in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And so it was really just time to make some changes. And so I mentioned last time around, I found this book. I didn't find it, somebody referred it to me. And this guy, Jason Fung, wrote this book, The Obesity Code. And read the book, and it was very different. So he talked about different things that I hadn't heard other people talking about. He talked about hormones and insulin, as opposed to calories in, calories out. So it was different. It was refreshing. I did not understand any of it really at first. But I was in a dire situation. And I did have a little bit of motivation. We were taking a cousin's trip to Vegas, 2019, fall of 2019. I ain't want to be the biggest one.
Pretty basic. Yeah.
Pretty basic.
Straightforward.
And so I'm like, let me try this fast and stuff. And I remember being about 275 or so. And I felt good about myself. I was far from healthy, but I'd made some progress. And I found some success in fasting. And so we took this trip, and I just decided I was going to keep going. Yeah. So with the fasting, what I did, I read the book. And so day one is really, I didn't come out the gate doing long fasts. I didn't do multiple days. Yes. It's something that I had to kind of work up to. So day one, the first thing I did was really this 18-hour, 18-6 or 6-18, depending on how you define it. But it's really eating for 6 hours and then fasting for 18 hours. So you have a 6-hour eating window. Bunch of research out there. I won't explain all that, but I started off doing. Actually, I don't even think it was a 6-hour. I think I started off with 8 hours. So yeah, go.
Quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Jason Fong, like the first time you hear it, it's like a science paper or a
Mm-hmm.
chemistry paper. I mean, it is complex if he goes down into the weeds. Did you understand it before you started it, or it's just I just read it and this is the framework? I'm gonna go ahead and dive in, and I'll understand it later on.
I think I jumped into it,
Yeah.
and I said I would try to understand it later on. I didn't know I would get to understanding it. I just knew this guy seemed to know what he was talking about. He was kidney doctor, I think. I don't want to get it wrong, but nephrologist, yeah.
Right.
So I said I'm gonna try it, and he even talked about the industry was wrong and how he was called a quack, a crazy guy when he first started talking about fasting, and he also is the first person that kind of pointed towards the spiritual component. So he has this video on YouTube, and he shows Jesus and Buddha, and he says, what do they have in common? Is that one of the things they agreed on was the fasting.
Yeah.
And so I said I didn't know anything about the spiritual piece of it. We'll get into that. And so I said, let me just try it. Day one, very difficult.
Yeah.
So not even eating till noon. Can I go till noon? So I made it day one. So I was eating from 12 to 8. And so I did that for a while, and slowly but surely I started to get used to it. It was tough at first, but after a while I started to adapt to it. And then as I got used to it, a couple months into it, I'm still doing this 12 to 8 eating schedule, which means that I would be fasting from 8 p.m. until 12 noon the next day. So that's where the 16 hours comes from. Did I do that right? 16 plus 8, 24. Yeah,
that's right.
16
Yeah, you got
hours.
it, man.
Yeah, so
Math guy, you got
math guy, right? And so, once I started to get into it, I said, all right, this is starting to work, but I need to put the foot on the gas a little bit. So I started to tighten my window. And so instead of eating at 12, can I make it till 1 o'clock? Can I make it till 2 o'clock? Can I make it till 3 o'clock? And so it became just this personal challenge.
It becomes a game.
It became a game,
Yeah.
and it's a you versus you.
Right.
And so I would carry around a gallon of water, and people thought I had lost my mind. Let's go out to lunch. No, I'm not eating.
Mm-hmm.
You're crazy. I heard a lot of that. But it was working. It was working. And so tighten up the window, graduated to OMAD. You hear people talk about OMAD. 1 meal a day. So that would be dinner for me. So I would get up in the morning, coffee, water all day, water. And then I would break my fast late in the day and have a big meal for dinner.
Question.
Yeah, go for it.
With your version of OMAD, because some people do OMAD, where it's just 20 hours of fasting and they get a 4-hour window to eat.
Mm-hmm.
How tight was your window when you're doing OMAD?
1 hour.
1 hour.
So I would
So
fast.
absolutely one meal. And that's
I
it.
got it into it, man. This is embarrassing, but when I first did OMAD, it was tough to get to that 1 meal. So I would do a big meal at the top of the hour, and then like a smaller meal.
Yeah.
30 minutes into it. So it was really trying to get 2 meals into that 1 hour.
Yeah, because you got to cram in everything that you need.
Yeah.
Calorie wise and nutrients and all that good stuff. So,
yeah. So I got to 1 meal a day, and at this point, the weights I hadn't said anything about exercise. This is all fasting.
That's right.
At this point, I was down 30, 40 pounds. Feeling really good about myself at this point. And so
new person, man.
Yeah.
At 40 pounds, you're a new person.
New person at 40 pounds. I'm at minus 80 pounds now.
Yeah. 2 new people. I guess.
2 new people.
Two new
That's
people.
math. I'm the math guy.
That's right.
But I tried everything else before. I've counted everything. I've been exercising my whole life. I always cared about it, but fasting was different. But I had to learn about the body, and I had to learn just a completely different way of thinking about things. And what makes fasting different for me was that I learned really the underlying problem. And a lot of people, I don't think to this day, still really know what the problem is. Insulin resistance. So no surprise there. A lot of people probably know that. But more specifically, insulin resistance in the liver.
Mm-hmm.
So once I realized that, I'm like, okay, well, that's news for me. But the good news was that fasting actually will fix the liver. The liver will regenerate itself. After about 12 hours of not eating,
Yeah.
So that's where the fasting came in. So once I started to understand, okay, it's about insulin. You got to let your insulin fall, and then spend time not eating, and then you would melt right through it. And so I had to be disciplined. It took a long time to do it, but yeah, I stayed disciplined, and that was about halfway through. Was 40 pounds. That was 2019. So I'm doing pretty good. I'm learning more. As I learned about insulin resistance in the liver specifically, I said, okay, well, now that I've identified the problem, what's the solution?
That's
so
right.
fasting was the fix. Fasting fixes the liver, but you have to stop eating to get there. So
Yes.
that was the devastating news. The good news as well as the devastating news. But then I said, okay, it's very hard to fast. A lot of effort, a lot of energy. I want to make sure I'm not messing myself up when I do eat.
Yeah.
And so I started to learn about fatty liver, insulin resistance, and so alcohol kind of came up as I mentioned this craft beer hobby that I had. Once I understood ethanol is a molecule in alcohol, and how damaging that is to the liver, it was like I can't do both.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm wasting my time to fast and then
Turn around
put the fat right back
and
on
undo
my liver
it. Yeah.
and undo it. So alcohol had to go.
Fatty liver, you mentioned it.
Yeah.
You want to explain it?
Fatty liver is your liver is not designed to accumulate or to hold fat. Your liver is very efficient. It's one of your biggest organs. It's right in this area, but it filters your blood. It regulates your hormones. It metabolizes your food. But it's not designed to hold fat. And so what happens is, depending on the molecules, this gets into the science, but ethanol puts fat on your liver. So a lot of people know alcohol causes fatty liver, no surprise. So I had to take that out. But then as that came out around fall of 2019, it was tough at first, but I had already started to lose some weight, and so I'm like, I'd rather.
Saw the success.
Yeah, I saw the success. And I'm like, this will speed it up.
Yes.
So I saw a little bit of success. I didn't have to give it up, I don't think, but it was like, this is too hard to do for me to shoot myself in the foot.
Yeah, it's tough. It's easier when it's on or off. Like, I'm gonna do that or I'm not gonna do that, versus how much is too much. Am I doing too much? Okay, I need to take my foot off the gas a little bit. Or I can have a little bit more. I mean, and it's a lot more. What is the? I guess you fighting with yourself mentally.
Yeah.
You wasting a lot of energy. Versus
who's winning,
I'm
right?
just
You
gonna,
versus you.
Yeah, I'm just gonna cut it loose, and that's gonna be that, So yeah.
Yeah. So the weight started coming off, man. It melted, and I had a lot to melt through. I had a lot to go through at 300 pounds. But I also knew 6'3", 300. People would ask me who you play football for. I think I mentioned that.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not a football player. I'm a basketball player.
I promise I'm a basketball player.
Give me a ball. Give me a ball. And I'm like, I need to go back to looking like a basketball player.
Yeah.
And so, but it was intention, man. I said, I want to do this. I decided to do this. I had this video. So my video was April 1st, 2019.
Yes.
Maybe we'll put it right here. We'll cut and put the video right
That
here.
would be dope.
That would be kind of
We can
dope.
do that.
So,
Chris can do that.
Chris can, yeah.
Yeah.
We haven't mentioned Chris.
Yes, let's mention Chris.
Let's mention Chris. Give me a chance to breathe. Why don't you take a minute?
All right, so Chris Conyers is our media specialist, media engineer, so
There
to
you go.
speak. I mean, he's doing everything for us with pictures, photography, video editing, and I mean, it's just right person coming along at the right time with the right skill set to help out. And I mean, without Chris, we wouldn't be able to do probably any of this.
Yeah.
So big shout out, Chris Conyers, AOCon Visuals.
That's
you know,
right.
you see his logo at the very beginning of the video. He does great work. He's a great person.
That's right.
Can't shout him out enough.
I know. That's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
man.
So Chris has been very instrumental. So Chris, if you can put that video right here. It is time to say goodbye to the fat guy. So long.
Yeah.
That would be good. So the video was it was kind of around that point. It was April. I was done with some stuff. I was like, you know what? I'm just over being this person. I just wanted to be somebody different. I recorded this video and I said, it's time to say goodbye to the fat guy.
That's right.
And I just knew I was done. I'd already learned a little bit about the Jason Fung stuff, and I said, oh, this is about self-discipline.
Yeah.
It ain't about what I eat, it's about my discipline. And so I just decided at that point, I said, I don't care what I have to do, I'm done. So that was my video, time to say goodbye to the fat guy. That was April 2019, but at that point I knew I was done.
Yeah, I remember you sending me that video.
Yeah. And it's, recording a video at that time was probably crazy. It's like, get out of here.
Yeah.
Anytime you have a radical shift, it takes time, and it's a little bit shocking at first. But I knew I was done.
Yeah.
And I did not want to be the person I was. I had all kind of mental health issues, which we may get into at some point. But fast forward back to the fall, so learning about insulin, the liver, alcohol had to come out.
Yeah.
But then I also learned, still reading, still learning. I mentioned Jason Fung. He has another guy that wrote a piece of his book. So Jason Fung wrote the Obesity Code, but he also wrote the Diabetes Code. Was the second book. And this other MD, Robert Lustig, you've heard me talk about him as well. Just kind of stumbled across his stuff. And I remember watching a video on YouTube, and he's the anti-sugar guy. And he had this video, and he suggested that giving a kid a Coke is almost like giving a kid a beer. And at first I'm like, oh, that's crazy, that's foolishness. But then I learned about the liver and the science behind it. And so around that time I gave up sugar.